So today is more thoughts on a walk than anything. What I'd like to talk to you about today is some interesting conversations we've been having with some people who have very intimate knowledge, let's say, of the council. Some insider stuff. So we've been talking to several people with very definite knowledge of the goings on in the council, and their suggestion to us is if we really want to make some change, which we do, because we can see we're not getting anywhere by going into the council because they're simply not listening to us. And the responses we're getting by email, the ones that have been the most surprising, has been over the fraudulent 5G certificates that these companies are making that, the council didn't check. To be fair, I would have checked the certificate, but I wouldn't have thought to have checked if the company or hadn't been dissolved. So I can see how easily it's happened, but yet the council are refusing, so far at least, to give us any guarantees that they won't continue to accept these fraudulent applications. And this is such a simple thing for them to say, oh, thanks for bringing that to our attention. Yes, you're right. We will make sure that all declarations of conformity are from active companies, not dissolved ones. Very simple. But the fact we are getting such a runaround over this is really showing us that we cannot work with the current council. We just can't. Now, I know you've all been saying this from our very first meeting with the council, that you'll never get anywhere. The only way you can sort this out is to vote them all out. And yes, it's taken us 18 months to come to that conclusion. And the reason it's taken us so long is because we do have a lot of very well-meaning, good councillors. And when you've got good people, you think, well, we must be able to work with them. If we could just reach them on a level that, they're where they're at, and then gently give them a bit more information, and then gradually, if they know what we know, they will make the right decisions. No, that isn't happening. So we've been speaking to council insiders who have given us a lowdown on who they think needs to go from the existing council. And it's been a very enlightening list, actually, and we're doing it from more than one person, don't worry. It's been very enlightening because we've got the lowdown on which councillors say and do the right things at the meetings, but in actual fact, just go and do whatever they like when they're not in the meetings. So that's been very valuable to know because, of course, we can't tell that from our interactions with them just in the meetings. So it's a very valuable list of who's long in the tooth, who needs to go. So the suggestion was that, look, if you could get 17 people in that council, or 17 people to run, and then not all of them are going to get voted in, but if you could get a percentage in there, say 10 to 15 people, then you can get in there and make some change. But we've been thinking about this a bit more and think, actually, do we really want to do that? Is that a good enough thing? And it's like, no, if we're going to do this, because we know you can't do it with one or two councillors, we're thinking, well, if we're going to go for this, we need to go for this properly. So let's have 30 good people up for election. By 2026, they are going to vote out the entire council. You get a chance. This is a one-off opportunity because normally they do it like a relay race, one set and then another lot. But in 2026, May 2026, we've got the opportunity to get a shot of pretty much most of the council. And that, I think, is the only way forward that we can forward. Now, I know a lot of people have drunk the reform Kool-Aid and they're pretty certain that Farage is going to save the day. Just in case he doesn't. So really, we need to come up with a system that works regardless of who's in government. So if we had 30 good people, now this number I've plucked out of thin air for Colchester because you'd need at least, I think, 26, 27 for a majority. Now, the reason I think we should do that rather than form a coalition, although there's some very good councillors in the council at Colchester, Our concern is that the problem with them is because they're in political parties, they are answerable to their political parties, and we want something that is truly independent. So what we're looking to achieve is a community council. Now, I know our councillors are from the community, so let me clarify what we mean by this. And that is that the community put forward, i.e. you, me and everybody we know, if there's somebody that we think that would make a good counsellor, for the next 6 months we pester them until they say yes. Now, we're looking for people that really do want to serve people and realise the importance of being in service. And this isn't people that are ego-driven. This is for people that need to be strong but not arrogant, because you're going to push up to a lot of resistance within the existing council with certainly the way the officers like to do things. So it's got to be somebody that is of strong mind and opinion, but at the same time will listen to what people want. So these are very specific qualities. Ideally, we could do with some people that have good business experience, because a council is a business, it needs to be run as such. There's a lot of people around that want to do good and have lovely ideas, but they're not based in reality. So we need a good mix of people from all walks of life and all political leanings. But you might be thinking, well, how on earth do you get that to work? Well, if people agree to some core principles that are separate from politics, so perhaps 3 to 5 things that they all agree on, and therefore it doesn't matter if they lean to the left or to the right or in the centre, wherever they are, if they've agreed to some core foundational principles, such as, number 1, you will serve the public interest ahead of all else. Number 2 could be something like they agree to protect the public from propaganda and make evidence-based decisions on all the available data, not just the consensus at the time, because as we know, science is bought and paid for these days. It is not, the scientific principles are not being followed. And another principle could be not to infringe on anybody's individual rights and freedoms. So something like that, something simple, so as I say, 3 to 5 things, because if you have a list of about 100 things, don't do this, don't do that, that becomes 1, very controlling, and 2, if you give people too many rules and regulations, they forget them all and don't follow them. I mean, most councillors don't seem to follow the Nolan principles, let alone make life any more complicated. So if people have agreed to some basic core values and beliefs, then it really doesn't matter if they are left or right leaning, because the principles are guiding their decisions. Now, the beauty of this would be, it is good to have people with different opinions, because I notice with my own thinking, when I listen to the councillors that have completely opposing views socially to how I view the world, it expands my horizons, it expands my point of view, and I gain from that. Now, I don't necessarily change my mind on things, but it does widen my point of view because they are coming from a different place. And I think that would be very valuable. We should have different ideas, different life experiences, different walks of life coming together and making decisions from a bigger perspective. Because if it's left or if it's right leaning, you're leaving out a big percentage of the population. Whereas if you're coming from a place of, dare I say it, higher values and core values, then the politics gets left behind, and so do the political parties. And then we're going back more in line with the 1689, 1688 Bill of Rights, all those good constitutional things that have been set up that people aren't so aware of these days, or not enough people. Then we're getting back to how the system was set up and how it will protect the people. Because regardless of your political points of view, we really do need to be saving ourselves and setting up a system that it doesn't matter who is in government, that our systems work. And if we could get 30 good people, or at least a fair proportion of those people, into running a council, they could change the council's constitution to make those guiding principles, i.e. always put the public interest first, always make fact-based, evidence-based decisions considering all the available evidence, not just the populist propaganda of the time, and not to trample on people's individual rights and freedoms. Just those three things, if they got written into every constitution in every council up and down the country, we would be protected from the frankly bought and paid for governments, because they're all following the same hymn sheet from different NGOs that none of us have voted for or have any say over. They are following agendas. They're just going at it slightly different routes at slightly different speeds. But our fail-safe, the boots on the ground, are the local councils, and they themselves are under great jeopardy. I was having a conversation with a gentleman last night who has been trying to get onto talk to YouTubers since February this year about devolution and the effects that's going to have on our local councils. Basically, the idea is up and down the country to have an amalgamation of councils that are ruled by a mayor. So basically think Sadiq Khan's up and down the country. Now, I thought we were safe in Colchester because the devolution deal fell through. They were having discussions with Essex, but that fell through. So I thought, oh, thank goodness, because, you know, they promised them all this money. It's a bit of a Trojan horse, because with that, they think they're getting more autonomy, but in actual fact, they won't be. And I think you can put money on whoever these mayors are, they will be very carefully selected, just like Sadiq Khan is. And once they're in, you try getting them out. So he's saying that actually no, because they're doing it on a county level. Now, he's going to send me some more information. So once I've read through it and processed it, I will do a video on it. But there's a lot of trouble coming our way, basically, is the long and the short of it. Regardless of who gets into government, it will just be the speed it happens is going to be the main differences. So we do have to take control of things ourselves, and quickly. The gentleman I was speaking to last night says by 2026 it will be too late. His view is the mayors will be in place, there'll be nothing we can do, and probably 15-minute city style stuff will be rolled out, because as we can see, they're already putting in the infrastructure. But anyway, that's just a conspiracy theory, so we won't go down there, because as you know, we do like to produce evidence of this. So if he can produce the evidence, I will be putting it on the channel. And this is from government documents. This isn't just people pontificating about things. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff, but you know, what else can we do here? We've tried reaching the councillors, it's not working. So if between us, whenever we come across someone in the community that we think would be a good councillor, for between now and the next 6 months, you need to persuade them that they need to do this job. And the types of people we're going to want to do this are the types of people who really won't want to do this. But we're going to need to. So if we can get this group together in the next 6 months, so 30 good people. Now, I have plucked that figure out of thin air purely because that seemed a doable quantity. Ideally, if we could get 40, that would be even better. So then these people need to work together in the community and start doing things within their ward so they know them. Then they can start calling on the 30 people or 40 people, however many people we can get together to form a community council, basically. So they start acting like a shadow council to begin with. So go to all the meetings, start speaking out on behalf of local residents. So basically they do the job before getting the job. So they get people an opportunity to try before they buy, so to speak. Get known in the community. So say, for example, we need something done, all 30 people get together and help whoever is in that ward litter pick or do whatever needs doing, whatever community project they're working on. So the community council gets known within the community. And that way, when it comes to voting, they've got another opportunity. And certainly this has happened already in Housestead. They have got their housing association, I think it's called, and the main political parties don't get a look in Housestead. Now, I've no idea if the councillors are any good or what their values are or anything like this, but I did notice that none of the traditional political parties are in Housestead. And what they do is, I think it was 6 people, the leaflet I saw had, I think it's about 6 or 7 people on it. They'd all clubbed together, done one leaflet, said, this is who we are, these are our values, blah, blah, blah. So the community know these people. They voted for them. So I think it is as easy as that, but certainly within our group, we don't know 30 people who would be suitable for the role. We certainly know 30 good people, but you've got to have the business experience. And that is very important. Now, not every single councillor needs business experience, but a fair few would need to, so that there's a practical understanding of how to run stuff, because certainly by 2026, that council, if it hasn't gone bankrupt, it's going to be on the verge of it. So it is going to need people that have those skills, but also not just a community council, but a collaborative council, because what is so frustrating at the moment is there are a lot of skilled people that clearly have good financial and business knowledge and experience. They are not being utilised because they are on the opposition. And that to me is utterly insane. So whilst ideally you wouldn't want a formal coalition, I think not utilising the experience of those that are already in the council is just criminal. So the community council needs to utilise and collaborate with whoever, it doesn't matter what team they're in, if they've got that knowledge and experience, they need to be listened to and included in the decision making, and no more of this, oh, it's politically sensitive, you can't see the figures. No, everybody sees the figures, including the general public and including the public in the decision making. You may remember in another video I did, I mentioned about councillors ought to be emailing their ward and saying, I've got to make this decision, how would you like me to vote? I had a chat with a lovely councillor in Suffolk, and he's on the Green Party. Surprisingly, he's a fan of the channel. But anyway, there's only one thing we don't agree on, and that's man-made CO2 is driving climate change. So other than that, because he's a proper ecologist and it's all for regenerative agriculture and all the things I'm into, we actually have a lot of common ground, as long as we don't discuss net zero. So we didn't. But anyway, he told me that none of the other political parties would be allowed to do that by their party. He said they wouldn't be allowed to ask their constituents how to vote. He said the Green Party is the only truly independent party. So he said we'd be allowed to, but none of the other parties would. How crazy is that? I mean, really. So the big decisions shouldn't be just taken by the council, they should be voted on by local people, because it's going to affect them. The cost cutting that is going to be required to save Colchester Council, that shouldn't be just down to a handful of people to argue over. That's got to be some public meetings brought in, at least for a year, where they have like the whole of Charter Hall and everybody turns up and speaks directly to the council, and the council say, look, here's the situation. We've got this option, or this option. What do you want us to do? And you, there and then in the room, people voice their opinions on stuff. So it needs to be more community-based. So a proper community council that the community has voted in. And then hopefully some of the other good councillors, and there are plenty of them in Colchester, would drop their political parties and come on board. So it is a collaborative, good council. Now at the moment, I've got 3 people in mind, so we just need another 27. So, down to you, who do you think would be a good councillor? But ideally someone that isn't coming from a place of ego and that would obviously agree with the core principles. And amongst yourselves in the comments, what do you think those core principles would be? So my suggestions are to only do things in the public interest, to do the evidence-based decision-making, protecting the public from propaganda, and ensuring people's individual rights and freedoms aren't trampled on. If I could get people to agree to that, I'd be perfectly happy. But if you can think of any more that are as pressing or more pressing, then leave them in the comments. Leave your suggestions in the comments. But just imagine if every council up and down the country was run truly by people that people wanted, rather than just the few brave souls that have put their name forward for whatever reason. I really feel strongly that what everything that's happening in the world is about is us finding our own power, us taking charge. This isn't for somebody else to save the day, as much as we all may desire it. Everyone who can see what we can see, everyone who has researched what we have researched, you do need to find your voice on a larger scale. And if that means becoming a counsellor, if that means having a YouTube channel, whatever that means for you, you've got to do it, and you've got to do it quickly, because time is running out. And if there is a cavalry coming along to save the day, well, you know, we could help, not leave it to everybody else, because leaving things to everybody else is how we've got ourselves in this mess in the first place. Oh, dog. You're in there, aren't you? Oh, just as we're getting back in the car. Was that nice? Oh, look at the state of you. Oh, dog. Really?